is gonna be a day to remember. It's the Rumble. 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 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Go, go, go! It's the Rumble. It's the Rumble.
Let's meet the people who built this city.
It's the Rumble. You can see the beautiful city from one side of the boat and the open sea on the other.
From the design team, Ellie, Adam, and Noah. What's up? Welcome. And let's go ahead and do some introductions. I'm the community manager. I'm that middle person between the developers and the community to kind of communicate and see how everyone's feeling about the game, so we can all kind of react and feel better about the game together. Next up, I'm going to pass it to Ellie.
Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm a technical designer here. I've been on Rumbleverse for like 2 really cool years.
Very cool. Thanks. And then on to Adam.
You know me. I've been here a couple times. I'm Adam. I'm the lead designer on Rumbleverse, and I was on it for about 4 years.
Welcome back to the stream. And then new face to the stream, Noah.
Hi, I'm Noah. I'm a designer on Rumbleverse as well. I kind of uh, wore a lot of hats and interacted with almost every team on the game to some degree. But one of the things I spent a lot of time on in particular was traversal and the environment and storytelling. And I think that's what we're going to mostly talk about today.
Yeah. Focus for today's stream is definitely going to be design with all these designers. Really quick, I'd like to say thanks once again to Atsrover for your really cool tribute remix. Appreciate having the opportunity to. Thanks, community, for all the great. You maybe have some fan art of your own channel in the Discord. If I catch it by the next time before we have our final stream, I'll definitely make sure to have it in that intro slideshow. And thanks to all those who've contributed already. But some things I want to go over really quick. As a reminder, Rumbleverse servers are going offline on the 28th. So we are not going to steer too much towards the conversation today. We're going to focus on design. And in light of the news, we're going to celebrate and appreciate all the cool stuff that's been put in the game. And try to keep the conversation related to that in the chat, please. Whenever we see questions that we can answer, we will. All right, let's go ahead and start up. Or actually, before we start with the first video, I have a caveat for you. You're going to see a handful of some naked character booties on stream. Don't mind that. That's just the character model we needed to use to apply all the fun accessories that you all know and love in the game. But first up, we're going to be talking about bots. A handful of you know that they're in the game. If not, you're about to learn right now. And to discuss their behavior and existence, we have the bot master, Ellie. First up, Ellie, I guess just tell us what you do here at Iron Galaxy.
Hi, so I'm a technical designer, which means a different thing at every studio, probably for every person there. For me, I'm a Swiss Army knife. I solve whatever problem they need solved. And a couple of years ago, they wanted to add bots to Rumbleverse. Um, I took that on since there isn't really a dedicated AI designer at the studio that was, willing or able or available. Um, the whole goal behind bots has been like one to fill lobbies, obviously. Like you can't, like you're not going to find 40 people in the same region of the world playing their first match ever at the same time, so you're going to need a couple bots for that. But more than that, bots were meant to be like a learning tool, an example. Like they have all of the functionality that a player does, and I wanted them to do cool things so that a new player coming into the game, or a player that's starting to get bored just mashing X and doing nothing else, might see something they've never thought they could do and go, oh, damn, I want to try doing that and learn a little bit.
Yeah, I think it's really cool because I think we all know like playground mode obviously is an awesome resource to go learn, read, and practice. But something I imagine some players, take for granted sometimes is like there's certain experiences within the game that teach us whether we recognize it on first glance or not, and it can be super helpful, especially for a brand new player.
Yeah, like seeing
Right.
wall jump. It's just like you going, "Oh, I can wall jump," right? Sometimes that's all it takes. Uh,
I see a
Yeah.
comment. They be doing combos on me. Hey, me too. Sometimes you just get caught against that wall, and then another bot
yeah,
shows up. Hey, you gotta respect
it
them.
happens. I want to touch
They're
on
very
something.
dangerous when they
Yeah,
get into larger
they
groups.
are. They are. I want to touch on something Ellie said too about needing the bots for matchmaking because we're not going to have 40 people in the same region who are playing their first match, and that kind of goes into an onboarding system we built to make sure that when you were new, you weren't going to be playing against people who have played 100 hours and we're gonna super dunk you. So we wanted to keep you in a pool of people who were also what we call onboarding. They're getting kind of their first taste of the game, and it's a much better experience for those players if most of their match is also players who are playing for their first time, and in absence of that, bots that are pretty gentle.
I see actually a fun question in chat. Who came up with bot names?
I've been outsourcing that to the entire team the whole time. We've
Yeah,
got a list of like 850 really good or really bad bot names.
I
I
thought it
think
was
there's a
higher
Do
than
you have
that
a
at this
favorite?
point.
there's a lot of
Does
gold in
anyone?
there.
Yeah, does anyone have a favorite bot name they
I
want to
named
call out?
one
Not to put you on the
after
spot.
I named one after my grandma. In
Oh,
Chinese, I say Papa, and whenever I accidentally kill Papa, or I'm sorry, KO Papa in game, I just feel like I need to instantly quit the game because why should I be beating up my grandma? You know what I mean?
I typed up like 600 of those in one day. I think most of them are in there still.
You and Noah sent me
Yeah,
like the first big list, and
yeah.
legal was so upset. I was like, "Can you guys vet some bot names?" And they're like, "Yeah, absolutely." And they're like expecting like 30, and I'm like, "Bam!" My favorite bot name is probably Joshua's nephew. One of
oh,
our
that's what I was gonna
QA
say.
guys named one after his nephew because they liked to play together. And I think I see him in every game, and I think I body him in every game. And I'm not trying to beat up Joshua's nephew. I'm glad he's playing, but wow.
Yeah.
Well,
Shout
well,
outs
cool.
to the Ronnie bot. Shout outs to Isaac.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, a lot of the bot outfits you see in game are often modeled after like outfits that we liked wearing during internal playtests. Let's move on to the next video.
What were we even seeing in that last video? Was a bot learning to wave? Can you tell me
Yeah.
Oh,
about that real quick?
yeah, I totally forgot we were supposed to talk about the video.
Yeah, yeah.
I taught all the bots to wave at you on the barge so that if you're ever unsure if any of my infinitely generable sons are in the match with you, you can just do a little wave. They'll wave back on 2-second intervals.
There you go. You now
Awesome.
know how it works. Don't abuse it too much.
Uh,
And then
this
what are we seeing
video
here? Yeah.
is my favorite thing probably ever. So the way bots started was as a prototype by myself in a little black box, just trying to see what we could work with our existing code base. And the biggest issues that we were going to deal with are like the ability to climb anything. Like the way AI works in games is you see the like red and orange and green like planes on the ground. That's the nav mesh. That's like defined spaces where bots are allowed to walk.
Okay.
And those don't exist vertically, and no engineer had a spare year to write me a vertical version. So what we've done instead is we've added these links, these little horrible green arrows, and I tried to teach the bot how to climb along those, and eventually they gave me like the most talented engineer I've ever encountered in my life to like actually give me the ability to teach the bots to climb. But for my proof of concept, I just got them to Hulk jump up any distance I defined. So this is my little man Hulk jumping up a 6-story building.
I would think most players who aren't familiar with game dev would just assume, oh, the bots can just automatically do everything a player can do. It's just a matter of teaching them why and when to do stuff. But that isn't actually true, right?
Right. Every time you press a button, you're essentially calling a function, and those functions don't always exist for non-players. We had to like effectively remake the character controller one element at a time. It was, I don't know, we learned a lot.
But it's not something you can take for granted, right? It's not you
No.
don't go to Unreal and push the make bot button and then have working bots.
No. The next video, I actually do show you a bot climbing, just for everyone's sanity. They do know how to climb now. They're really great. I don't have the nav link shown in here. I do have 2 naked boys. Sorry.
You're gonna see a lot of that today. It's fine.
The fun thing you should have witnessed in that him climbing situation is he attaches to the wall, thinks for a moment, climbs up, and then does his yeet over the side. That exact like chain of events has undergone so many iterations. I cannot stress to you how good these bots are at climbing. Unless they're not. Sometimes they get stuck on a wall, but that's usually like they don't know what air conditioners are, so they get stuck sometimes and they don't know how to climb around. So if you do see one hanging from a wall, feel free to at me directly.
Not that we're going to be able to do anything about that, but
Right, if you see one in the next week.
I always like when I see a squad of bots walk to a wall and then kind of single file line
then
up,
one at a
find the
time.
exact same spot together. It's just so funny to me every time.
What's happening under the hood is we're requesting the most efficient path from where the bot currently is to his destination. And that usually means the navigation system is picking one of my links, and it's not going to pick a different one because there's no such thing as reserving a path. So you'll just see a quad of bots just elevatoring up together.
They look like ants.
On to the next.
Oh, yeah.
What are we looking at here?
This is combat variation. The sweet little bot boys learned to fight last in their life cycle. I taught them a lot of things, and at the very end we taught them combat because it was the biggest and the scariest thing we would have to do. And the initial combat system we came up with was essentially just like a grab bag. Just here are all of the moves you can possibly perform. Grab one and don't choose that one again until you've done all the others. And that was like awful and not tunable, and we're designers and we want to be able to customize everything in our lives.
Yes.
So we rebuilt that to be like, I can set distributions in and out of superstar mode of what moves a bot will pick and when, and the bots have like generic logic for handling all special moves. So like the bot actually does equip 2 special moves and I don't know what they are. The bot just finds 2. If they're identical, that doesn't count. I do have him just overwrite identical moves with it themselves until he gets a new one. So he does get 2, I promise. But we came up with this like significantly improved system of like specifying distribution chances per bot, so we could like difficulty scale our bots and have all sorts of customization fun. And then our combat lads at Adam decided that the basic 3-hit combo of mashing X 3 times and doing the hammer fist was like really repetitive and didn't really have a lot of depth. So they added more. We have the spin kick and the back toss, and they both have their own pluses and minuses compared to the hammer fist. And the bot had absolutely no idea how to do it. So we got to redo combat again to account for it. And now we have like this combat, like this like input system that like takes a chain from me. And then we taught them how to use weapons, which I didn't think to grab a video for. My bots can use the key bat. They can't fly with it, but they can use it.
They couldn't use weapons at season 1 launch, right? And then
Right.
after that,
At season 2, we introduced bots have baseball bats now.
Scary.
Sorry about the difficulty spike there, everyone. But
we're all learning together, right?
Yes.
Right. And when we taught them how to use weapons, we rewrote combat again for specifically the weapons to take just like all of the like attack chain data and choose intelligently from those which one they want to perform. So the bots fighting is like cute and brain dead, and they have their little pauses between moves or whatever. But it's also like really cool and really involved.
Yeah. You were mentioning too that they, they got a little bit more difficult as you taught them new things, and that you were able to build a system that allowed you to kind of make different bot difficulties or bot personalities and scale those in different ways. And I just want to personally let people know that there were some bots you haven't seen that were terrifying. Like genuinely really, really hard. So the capability was certainly there.
Yeah, one thing that people I think don't appreciate sometimes is that it's not that hard to make a bot that's extremely challenging.
Yeah, that's true.
And it's not that hard to make a bot that's extremely trivial, but like that sweet spot in the middle where like most players live is that's where it gets a little tricky.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that.
I think I've got...
Also, shout out to our test map. This is Loot World.
We
spent a lot of time on this map.
Yes.
If you look in the background,
very carefully
you can see every
showing
item.
you not the side with the new items.
Thank you.
Okay, cool. And then I think we just have like a fun little surprise video to close out our bots, right?
Yeah, I just wanted a celebration. I did teach the bots to emote, so they will sometimes worm on you if they get a kill.
It's beautiful.
I think every Rumbler has hopefully done at least once, respectfully, of course.
A respectful worm is always expected.
Well, cool. I think that concludes our bot section. Thanks for all the context and effort there, Ellie and team. Next up, I want to talk about another contribution that you obviously very much worked on, Ellie. Snowball mode. We're going to transition to the next video as we Snowball mode was a cool first limited time mode that made it to the game, where we got to experiment with small, medium, and large size snowballs. So tell me more about it.
Right. So back to the tech design thing. Bots is a problem that needed solving. Limited time modes was a problem that needed solving. So we tried to identify the smallest additional load possible. Snowball Fight is a battle royale. It's just you don't have any attacks and you're looting snowballs instead of any of the existing items. So it was like, I'm not gonna say a gimme because it took 14 of us a hot month of hard work, but it was like, this was like the dream we could all believe in together. And I think it turned out really, really great. Adam made me some baller snowballs. And the art team was like, I had approached them about I'm putting snowballs in the world. Could I just get a simple V effect of it snowing? And then instead they turned all of the world into Christmas. They have ribbons around the light poles and the wreaths on the fences and the crates all have bows. And I'm like, this was amazing. And we had limited time challenges with their own Christmas themed rewards, but it's not Christmas, it's the winter holiday. Sorry. Yes. And it was amazing. we had like internal playtests of Snowball Fight like every day when we were working on it, and it's just one of my favorite things in the whole world to wail on somebody with an Omega Snowball.
For sure. You briefly made mention to like the quicker turnaround time on how long or how short, I guess, it took to deliver on this mode. Can you give more context on that? Like the process of like, hey, snowball mode is what we're gonna land on for our next mode. How long it took? How did we go about it in an efficient way so we can make it for the holidays?
Right, absolutely. God, maybe second week of November, we like had finally like settled on this is like a mode we can pursue. Like we think we can make it in time. And then it was just like, it was me and an engineer off to the races to identify every crash you'll hit if you try and override our game mode with something different. And then once we got into like a stable, like you can launch a snowball fight and you get placed on a barge and you don't crash when the cannon countdown ends, like then it was involve several more people. We need UI to look different. We need to actually like override how many legs you get, because in Snowball Fight you have 10 legs, so you can sprint and block all the snowballs. And it was just this like, it was like we had like the very beginning was like technical, are we breaking everything? No. And from there it was just like, let's see how much good feeling shit we can fit in here at once. And then at the very end we had to add challenges because we almost forgot, and then we were done.
During all this we also had to play it and tune it, right? It is a BR mode, but you know, the lack of a looting phase and the extremely high lethality of these snowballs,
most of the gameplay team and a good portion of our UI team were donating like 30 or 60 minutes to just throwing snowballs at me every day. It was a massive undertaking.
So we had to figure out, you know, what's the right starting ring size for this mode? How fast should it shrink? What's the right ending ring for this? And
we also,
how do we make sure there's enough snowballs at the ending ring position? There's a lot of problems we didn't necessarily anticipate at the offset.
There was a moment there where Adam pulled me aside and very delicately told me that my choice in Final Rings was terrible and we needed to pick something that was interesting even a little bit. I was choosing like open fields, like there's no cover, there's one snowball spawner. Once you get to the final ring, you'll be there forever. And he's like, or no, let's fly around the world and just draw some circles.
We picked some good spots. I feel like the map was probably filled with dozens and dozens of spots that work for a snowball final ring, but it's interesting because I could think of thousands of spots that work for a final ring for the battle royale, you know, melee combat mode. But for this mode, it's actually a lot less spots work well for this, like a lot less.
Yeah. Final ring placement is an art.
Yes.
Well, the guy that placed all the final rings is like, it's pretty hard.
Yeah, we built this pretty fast. The very first step was to just prove that throwing these at people was fun. So we would just jump into a kind of dev server mode and start throwing pods at each other as our only thing, just to see if that was like, can we make a game mode out of just throwing pods or whatever? And then we decided to make an actual, you know, placeholder snowball. So I found a sphere that we had, and I needed a mostly gray or white texture to put on it. So I wrapped one of the character's skin around it, so the snowballs had a very creepy face if you really looked at them.
Yeah, my naked bots, the snowball is their skin.
Yes.
Just, it was awful.
Yeah, it was pretty cool to get to work on a new mode. We certainly had, you know, we have lots of ideas for future modes and stuff like that. But you know, getting the technology right so that we could even break out a new mode was the biggest challenge here. We, like Ellie said, we weren't even sure if we tried this if the game was just going to explode on us and how much time it would take to prevent that from happening.
It did explode. But then
Yes, many times.
It did explode a lot.
Yeah.
It was nice. We also got to use the heart pickups in this, which those had been around since way long ago, and they didn't make it into the game because we decided we didn't need them.
And when we first prototyped the coins, the little star coins, there were ones for each meter, right? You could pick up coins to refill stamina or health or superstar meter. And the game just felt better with just the superstar meter one, since health was a little too plentiful in the game anyway, and stamina comes back on its own. So we ended up with just that, but it was cool to bring the heart coins back, like Noah said, because in this mode we didn't have any food. So it's like, oh, now we need a way to heal you and promote aggression, and the heart coins come out of a victim that you KO, so that makes you want to eliminate somebody to get your healing.
Yeah, the mode is extremely merciless and kind of cruel without them, with no healing items.
Yeah.
Also, they were pizzas. Before they were hearts, they were pizzas, and that was cute too.
True. Very true. They were little slices of pizza.
That's awesome. It just made me think. Probably one of my favorite noises in the game was the like sound effects of when you picked up the heart coins. So now I almost want to rephrase. We were talking about our favorite noises in the game last week during the past stream. It's definitely picking up these heart coins. I love how they sound. Alrighty. I think that wraps up our snowball portion. We can actually pan back to the four of our faces for this next topic. I wanted to chat about challenges. Challenges are, the thing we see if we press pause and look at our challenges, or straight on the front end, our dailies and weeklies. I know Ellie and Noah worked pretty closely with that. Any fun stories to share there, or favorite challenges?
I don't know if I have any stories, but I always say this to the rest of the team. But like the idea behind our challenge system was just to make it a little bit more of a game, and like something you could optimize and kind of take risks on, than just kind of here's what you do and then you do it and then you're done. So that's why we have the re-rolling and the kind of different values and the different amounts of difficulty and time that different challenges would take. And I think we wanted to complain a little bit about the step counter and removing the step counter. Nobody liked that one, but
Right.
that's why you could re-roll it.
The season 1 learning step counter.
Yeah. Low effort, high time.
I inherited challenges from Noah and Jose, another one of our designers, right at the end of season 1. We had just extended the season by a week, so I had to panic add a week's worth of weekly challenges to the data table and push it. And the way game development works is everything sounds really easy, but it's actually really hard because there are a lot of moving pieces. The way we test changes to the live environment is we have several test environments, and they get promoted to different levels of "don't touch this, please." And at some point in that promotion process, I forgot to fix the end dates on all of the challenges before the final week. So everybody woke up that final Tuesday morning and all of their challenges were gone. And instead they just had my extra week of challenges, and chat dissolved into chaos. Everyone starts panicking. Oh my God, what did you do? And I'm just like, what did I do? Honestly. And it's pretty obvious what I did. So we spent a hot day trying to figure out what's the best way to solve this. And I'm just like, we should just put the challenges back and hope nothing breaks. Everyone's like, what if something breaks though? And ultimately we built a clone of the live environment and tested turning the challenges off and back on. And if any players logged in while the challenges were down for one beautiful calendar day, that effectively wiped all of your progress on all of those challenges. So when I turned them back on the following morning at dawn, you just had 12 weeks worth of shiny new challenges you could complete again for XP all over again. And if you didn't sign in during that time, you'll never notice, because all of the challenges stayed there the whole time, I promise. And that was probably my biggest oops moment. Season 2 was a lot more stable.
Yeah.
But a lot of people seemed happy, right?
Yeah,
I get the chance to do this again.
Right. Yeah. It was definitely planned. I was trying to give you more XP.
Some of those challenges were easy enough that could probably be a blessing for a lot of players.
Yeah, especially I'm the one person that logged in on that during that 24-hour period. I really want to finish my battle pass or whatever. It's a nice little boost.
It did make finishing my leagues a lot easier.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, cool. Thanks very much for going over the challenge system. Next up, we have some reference material video for some in-game animations catered by Adam. Thank you very much for presenting these.
I don't think we use any of this as actual reference, but
I mean, I think if you watch it, you could definitely tell the influence. So everyone, please enjoy.
I'm the one in the khakis.
Look at these beautiful VHS timestamps.
Oh yeah,
Look at that nut punch. That's stuff you've seen that in game.
1998.
Vicious attack.
Oh yeah.
Hurricanrana, here we go.
Okay, that all happened to us within the past 24 hours, I'm sure.
So I performed this in front of my entire high school at a talent show just before, the day before holiday break.
To the
That's why
face.
Santa is our ref. My friends and I, a teacher got us into wrestling and kind of explained that it was a cool soap opera with live stunts, and we got really into it and started our own little backyard wrestling outfit. Please don't try this at home. Maybe not the most responsible thing I've ever done, but somehow we got our school to let us sign waivers and do this little 3-minute match. And I'll post a link to the whole match in the chat if you want to see it. And there, I went through the chairs.
Look at that chair. The left chair is broken.
Oh, it's dead. Yeah.
And Adam,
Chair has
I
zero
remember I asked
durability.
him, I'm like, yeah, zero durability. I remember I asked Adam, I'm like, did any of this hurt you? He said, nah.
Nah. The worst landing is the vertical suplex. I landed on my side a little bit, but I was fine.
And then Santa, GG's.
Yeah. Okay, I'll post the link in the chat if the mods will let me for that whole thing if you want to check it out later. But,
For sure. Thanks for sharing, Adam.
I was the heel character in our group, so I lost most of my matches, but it was fun.
You put on a great show.
Thank you.
Cool. On to some more design stuff. First up, we're going to talk about camera controls in this section. We're good to go to the next one.
Yeah, this is like really old footage. So you can see from some of the clips you saw last week, our little pillboy, our original test model in our gray world. We call this gray boxing. You know, we're just trying to make something that's kind of an approximation of what you might be in when you play the game, so that you have something to move around in and make the game feel good in. So right here we have some stuff that was put together by Jose, another one of our technical designers. Where we kind of brought them onto the project and we said, hey, the default camera controls that Unreal's given us for third person, they're lacking. We need to do more. So let's look at some reference material. Let's check out some games that we really like the camera in, which is a weird statement because nobody likes the camera in any game. There are games where you play it and you never complain about the camera. Those are the games with the best cameras. Usually if you notice the camera, something's gone wrong, right? So we looked at a lot of games where we felt like we came out of the other end of it without really thinking about the camera too much and studied those. And Jose put together a whole bunch of stuff that you're seeing here where, he tried to make it so that if you didn't touch the right stick at all, that the camera would follow you appropriately and it would feel nice when you were turning and it would handle corners a lot better than the default. And then he also tried to make it so that when you used the right stick to move the camera up above the character, it would get farther away from the character so you could get a bigger view and not feel so claustrophobic. And that when you move down below the character, it would get closer to the character so that it would be easier to look up at skyscrapers where there was going to be some threat in this game of people kind of jumping off and trying to elbow drop you and stuff like that. So he did this huge prototype of how to make the camera feel better. And this was actually in the game for a very long time. But we ended up needing to go farther with it when we had kind of the more finished version of the game, or a game that was starting to feel more like a real game. And Ellie got to work on a whole bunch of that stuff. Ellie, do you want to talk about any of that?
Yeah, for sure.
We had a problem, so naturally we threw Ellie at it.
Again,
she could do anything.
There was a problem. I was available.
Yes.
They chucked me into camera hell. Love cameras. I'm just terrible at them. I think I have a video of what the camera ended up being.
Yeah, shout out Jose for providing these videos and our first draft of camera control. Let's move on to the next video.
All right, here's my camera doing most of what Jose's camera already did. If you turn without pressing the right stick at all, it'll auto turn to look kind of still behind you as you rotate. Uh, if you like pan the camera up, it'll back away from your character. If you get closer to the ground, it'll come in a lot closer. Um, if you get really close to a wall or another player or anything that is sufficiently solid, we like dither your character out to nothing so you don't see just your own skull really close up.
From the inside.
Right. You got a really good look at your own eyeballs for a while. And then this is the thing I think I'm most proud of. The like when you climb something, the camera pulls out so you can see more of the wall you're on. And as you're going up, the camera tries to look a little up to help
Mhm.
you. And if you're rounding corners, it'll try to get ahead of you as you round them. So you're not climbing sideways and now you're over here and the camera doesn't know what to show you. It's just going to go whoop with you. And then when you get to the top of a wall and you do your little ledge up animation and you land, the camera goes from looking up to looking back at you from a normal angle. And if you jump off of a building, it'll look down in anticipation of where you're going in case you wanted to elbow drop. I didn't think to elbow drop in the video, but if you do, it looks down for you in case you're not. I did this whole thing like thinking about like my dad who doesn't know how twin stick anything works, just like what direction would I need to be asking Todd to look in.
Yeah.
And the camera is like trying to very quietly give you a hint. When you get hit from behind or from the side, the camera like nudges like a cute little 10 degrees towards the hit location.
Hmm.
Not like I smack you and your camera 180s. Isaac, our combat designer, was like just brutally motion sick
Yeah.
for my first couple iterations because I did that to him. But it'll give you a hint of danger's over there. So if you
Right,
keep
yeah.
getting hit, you'll turn around.
Yeah, speaking of motion
Yeah.
sickness too, there are so many. This stuff is incredibly easy to screw up in terms of making people motion sick, and not just people who are susceptible to it. There's a thing that we're doing where you attach to the wall, and we kind of pull the camera out from you a little bit so that you can see more. But if that motion is not done on the right curve, if it's too linear or too fast, people get sick when the camera zooms in and out unexpectedly.
Mhm.
So that stuff is actually like wildly delicate. And I think anyone who's made a third person game has probably struggled with how to get that right so that half their coworkers don't get sick the moment it happens. Very, very tricky.
Yeah. Remember, I think our first pass on the wall camera also tilted a little bit. So if you're moving to the left, it would like kind of pull back an angle a little bit. And it was great. Like you could see so much and it was beautiful, but it was not good for certain people's stomachs. So
Yes.
it's not in the game.
And we did end up getting some wall camera improvements as well from one of our gameplay engineers, Julia. Kind of more recently, I think it was around season 2. Everything came together really nicely. I think the camera is really good. We were experimenting with some stuff that would allow the camera to like go inside a wall, so you didn't get so close to you when you were against a wall. That was kind of interesting. But I'm really happy with where we were able to get the camera to. And if you get cornered against a wall, well, maybe you should watch your position. Maybe don't be there.
Also, and as far as like, the best camera is the one you don't think about, shout out to Giant Swing. I think our only special move that has a specific camera treatment. The camera will kind of pull away while you're in that move to
Can
give
we
you a little more
talk
visibility.
about Can we talk about Giant Swing for a
Yes.
second? I forgot we did that.
So there is one point in which you notice it, which is probably what you're going to talk about.
For Giant Swing, that's the move where someone grabs you and does like a cute 720 and then throws you off in the direction they're pushing on their stick. Looks great for the attacker because you're standing still doing this and your camera can sit still and watch and be happy for you. For the victim, you're doing this. So
Right.
the camera is also doing this.
Yeah.
We have an override explicitly for the Giant Swing and his little brother Big Swing, where your camera as the victim will attach to the attacker for the duration of it. So it'll pull out slightly and then sit still.
Yes.
And then when you get flung off, it'll reattach to you, lerp back to your position, and then pretend nothing ever happened.
Which I think many people have seen gone wrong when occasionally the camera doesn't reattach to them after they get launched and you're attached to the person who just threw you for a few moments.
Yeah,
Yeah, I thought that's what you were going to mention.
that's the one that will haunt me probably till I die, is if someone interrupts your giant swing at the right frame, it'll attach to the new person, it'll fail to reattach to you and stay on the attacker. It's always just, if you're the victim of a giant swing, I'm so sorry.
It's cool to be able to talk about a lot of these little challenges that players wouldn't ordinarily even think about.
Yeah, it highlights a lot of different points of focus for us as a team, where we have to apply these different kinds of attention and care to different parts of the game. Alrighty, let's move on to the next part. Good to go to the next video. Adam, what are we looking at here?
Okay, well, it's time to talk level design. So when we first started getting the game playable, Noah and I were set off with the task to try and figure out what the game world would be like. So what you're seeing here is our very first test world. It's called Traversal Testbed. And we started building buildings and trying to figure out scale. Like, how big should these be? How much blocking volumes is too much? How big can, how tall does something need to be when we go under it? How tall can something be before it's just not fun to climb anymore? And how can we solve that? With the game lighting we're going to use, our interior is going to work. So one of our first attempts at an interior here is this parking garage, which is going to look fairly familiar to you if you've played the game. We have parking garages in the game that are somewhat structured like this, but we tried making this thing. The idea for this was it would be a bank, and it's technically an interior, but it's got one side open so the light can get in, and it feels kind of nice. We never ended up building anything like that in the game, but the possibility was there. We tried a tunnel. You guys have all been in the sewer, so we ended up figuring that out. But look at how bright it is in here. There should be no light in here at all. So this is a problem, artistically speaking, because all the light is in here and it really shouldn't be. So this is another experiment to figure out all those kinds of things. And as we built this stuff, Noah and I were kind of building side by side. I would build one section, he would build another section. So we're going to fly out to some more of these sections that we started playing with. There's a highway section we're going to be flying into here just to see what it would be like to have kind of elevated roads and what kind of spacing you would need to make any of these types of things feel good. Again, the platforming here wasn't nearly as evolved as it is now, but it was something that Noah was working very hard on at the time as well to improve, which I'm sure I'll talk about a bit. Noah built this, factory area that was pretty fun to climb around in. But you kind of learn that even though the shapes are good, it's not dense enough. There's not enough stuff close together to make jumping between those things fun. This park area Noah built as well. It's really cool. It's just too sparse.
And way too big.
Way too
big space.
Yeah, we're learning as we go, right? We don't really know what a Melee BR is supposed to be like. You can't even hire people who have made games like this who know what maps should be like for them. So we're kind of figuring it out as we go. Here we built a graveyard. Cemetery. Yeah, a whole cemetery. It's enormous. It doesn't need to be this big, but some of these ideas, definitely had some potential. We're gonna keep flying around here for. Oh, go ahead.
If you look in the distance, and I think on the left there, I just want to call out like something that the artists did that I really liked was kind of take Google Maps screenshots, not to like trace the buildings or anything, but to kind of just like, okay, in a real city, what does the grid look like? Like how far apart are things? Like what is going to look realistic and like feel correct? Out. That's like such a cool way of like using data in the game. Like a lot of people are like, oh, we could use data, we'll take telemetry, we're going to like get A/B testing, but this is like take the real world and kind of like use it to build around, which is super creative, I thought.
So the next thing we did was we started building obstacle courses to try and push our platforming and find out what it needed, more of or less of or whatever. So those are 2 obstacle courses I built that you just flew by. Noah built a whole bunch of obstacle courses as well. I actually have some videos on here of me using today's controls running 2 of these obstacle courses for you. So it's not exactly accurate to how it was, but they're pretty fun videos. So here's some more obstacle courses. We would gather a bunch of players at a start point and then just race to the flag and see who could get there first.
The scaffolding test over there.
Yeah, this obstacle course is the best one by far. It's got a branching path. It's got all kinds of obstacles on it. It's really good.
Looks so fun.
These are really cool.
There's just like this was around when my buddy Bennett Foddy's game Getting Over It came out. So this whole part of the top with a bunch of just random garbage stacked up was a little tribute to that game.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. This is a really fun map to work on and just learn more about what it was we were building. I can't stress enough how challenging it is to work in a space that's this new, right? Everyone's played a BR, everyone's played a brawler, everyone's played a fighting game, but none of those things coalesce together into something known. And it made map design especially challenging because there's just no other game we could look at to find out what it is we needed to do. So there's a lot of iteration and failure when trying to figure this stuff out. One of the things we're going to fly to on this map before the obstacle course videos is we started building combat arenas, just like little floating, almost Smash-like stages. And what we would do over here is put a spawn point right next to it. So if you died, you would kind of come right back. This was before you even had health in the game. The only way you could die was being thrown in the water. And we would just have matches over here and try to throw each other off the thing for an hour. And it was a blast even back then when the combat was super rudimentary. We built a ton of
Hey,
these.
there's a barge.
Yeah, there's a boat one. Maybe the precursor to a barge. Lots of little combat arenas that were super fun to play in. My favorite one's kind of coming up at the end of the video, where we basically put a spawn point in the middle of 4 bridges, and there were 4 different arenas. So we could you could have like a fake respawn timer in the way that you would have to run back to the arena from the top. So that was pretty
Pyramid
cool.
was miserable to play
Oh,
on.
the pyramid was the
It was
worst.
a failed
one by far.
experiment.
Yeah. So yeah, here's this little bridge. You would spawn up in the middle here and then choose a path and go to one of the arenas where everyone was fighting. So we'd say, hey, we're on the bridge one with the spikes underneath, or we're on the one with the bouncy cars. And when you'd respawn, you just kind of run back there and fight it out. But yeah, this is our very early learnings and trying to figure out what the heck it was we were building and what was fun about it and how to take the aspects that were shining and make them shine harder and find the aspects that were not shining and polish them up. So let's go to the next video and check out some of these obstacle course runs. And Noah, you can talk more about this stuff too.
Yeah. I mean, well, one of the things I wanted to call out just was that it was great that we had so much time. We didn't have a ton of time, but we spent a lot of time early on doing these kinds of tests. It wasn't like we had to hit the ground with, specific deadlines and kind of like worry about making too much of the game before we felt we were ready. So like this is like called pre-production, and we were lucky to have a good amount of pre-production for this game where we could kind of spend time solving the problems that we were confident that's like, yeah, this is how high the characters should jump. This is how fast they should move. This is what a good space feels like. This is what, a good gap to jump between is. Like we had the time to answer those questions, which is not true for a lot of games. But yeah, it helped a lot.
Yeah, we ended up
Question for
having.
you.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So obviously, I think a huge fun point that we can all kind of feel when we play the game is like the fluidness of character movement, and that one crazy bounce from some high place or a hit from a bat or something like that. What gave us like the ideas behind like this is what's going to be fun behind character movement and player movement?
Well, I know Adam loves Mario 64.
I do.
I like Mario 64 too. So we spent a lot of time kind of getting the basic traversal, just feeling satisfying. With that that game is a great example of
Go to the next video.
movement, obviously. Yeah, I know one thing that's kind of unique about that game is the kind of commitment in movement. Like a lot of times, what feels good is just the ability to kind of always kind of reverse and correct and kind of, basically correct any mistake while you're in motion. And Mario 64 kind of does not really give you that. Like, you do a long jump and you're not exactly going to do a 360 or a 180 and change direction. So I think we have a good balance of kind of good tight control that is very responsive, but also does have enough commitment so that another player can kind of predict where you're going to be at any given time.
Yeah, and that's the word right there, right? I think we fashioned a lot of this game's movement and combat around the idea of commitment, like stamina management and jumps that you can't really correct unless you're equipped with the right things, and really just trying to make a game where you could make an oopsie and you would be like, oh no, and then you would kind of feel that dread before the impact of the oopsie finally hit you. Something that I really like about these types of games is when they can be that way, and I think the combat has that too. There's the moves have quite a bit of wind up and quite a bit of recovery, and you have systems to help cover your mistakes. But oftentimes, when you messed up, and you're about to eat crap for it, and that anticipation, that moment where you're like, well, I messed up, I'm gonna die. can really add to the kind of the drama of the game in a really fun way. This obstacle course is so cool.
Yeah, the slides were cool.
Yeah, reminiscing about it.
We didn't get to do very much with that kind of slide behavior in the final map, which is too bad.
Yeah. But I think, we went through a couple level designers on the game. We had Ray and Lizzie. Ray came in and he did a whole bunch of really like scientific experiments about, how high can the regular jump go and where do I need to put a ledge up ability. You've noticed here this character doesn't ledge up, right? They don't hit the top of the ledge and pull themselves over. We have to do special work to make that function in the game world. And I won't go into what that entails. It's a lot of busy work to get that working.
Tedious,
right.
Yeah.
Very tedious. But he did a lot of that stuff, and you're going to get to see a map that he built later as well, and Lizzie worked with him on. That is very different from what we ended up shipping. And then we had another set of level designers later. We had Sam Way and Elaine, and they kicked ass on the map you guys know and love. And then we have another set of level designers who are working on the game up to this day. Who are also kicking ass. We got Alex,
David Turkowitz.
Yep.
Yeah, and Alex Morden.
So a lot of level designers have touched this, and it's been truly interesting to see what they all bring to it and how they embrace the idea of this is a platformer first, it's a melee combat game second, and how do I build something that's really fun for that? And what can I learn from the map we've already built and push the limits in the next zone we're going to build?
Yeah, I feel like even as you look back and forth between Lokiki and Grappital City, you can just see and feel the distinctual differences of maybe like approach between design between the two, which gives us that variation. I think we learn to appreciate. It's like, oh, I'm gonna get a different kind of play this match because I'm in a different ring, I'm in a different part of the map, which gives it that randomness fun factor.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite things about the game is, it's very hard to optimize. Like I can get lucky and get the perks I want and the moves I want, and then, it turns out the match is ending near the water.
Right.
Just so much variety.
Yes.
The other thing I wanted to call out about the level design is that, one of the things early on that we all agreed was really important was this idea that like chaos is fun. So, getting hit with a bat and going flying and landing on a car and bouncing and landing in the water. Yeah, it's frustrating you land in the water, but like it's pretty funny, and it's always funny. It's still funny, right? 4 years later. So kind of building levels to kind of support these kind of like almost like Rube Goldberg machine kinds of chaotic interactions where cause and effects kind of keep chaining together. And it's another part of, I think, why it's, at least for me, still fun after so long.
We were worried that wouldn't happen enough naturally.
Yeah.
And we had written a spec for a system that would somewhat magnetize you towards danger. So if somebody were to launch you with like a baseball bat and you got sent flying, we would look at where you were going to land. And if within a few degrees there was something to land on that would bounce you or explode, we would just kind of gently pull you over to make sure it happened. We didn't end up building that system because what we found was when building the world and getting everything into it naturally, we were hitting the sweet spot. We don't want this happening all the time. Otherwise, the shine of it wears off if it happens too often. It needs to be just common enough that you see it and just rare enough that it's super exciting when you do. And we ended up really hitting that sweet spot naturally and didn't need to build a system to help kind of manipulate the odds, so to speak. We can go to the next video now. The next video is going to be one last look at this world, because the last thing that happened in this world was that the art team came through and started working on, hey, what's this game actually going to look like? What do these buildings look like textured and with scale? And if we start adding like natural looking architecture and ridges to them, how does the climbing system start to fail? Spoilers, it failed hard. So there were a lot of things we had to learn there and reassess about it. You've seen some combat footage from previous streams in this area as well, but this is still a very gray boxy. It's not super colorful. It's not something you're going to ship, but it starts to give us the idea of what kind of heights are working for the game, what kind of shapes. Here's another area that's more urban themed instead of metro themed. So the buildings are a little smaller and the roads are just like entirely too wide. And this is another thing we learned from building this section was that road area was not interesting or fun at all. And the wideness made it so that leaping from one side of the buildings to the other sides was impossible. So it kind of really undercut the movement as well. But the areas in each block of buildings were actually pretty fun, and there was a lot of nice movement on the rooftops, in between the rooftops and in the alleyways and stuff like that. So really just learning a lot from all of our experiments. And I was really lucky to be able to find this map still in the depot, because I thought it was gone forever, but it's cool to be able to share this with you guys.
Definitely.
We can go to the
But
next
that's not
one
all.
unless Noah has something to say.
No, there's more. We got to keep moving.
Yeah. All right. So then the next step was to try and, like, really, now that we've got our learnings, start to figure out what the real world will be like. This is a metro test that the art team did. And you can actually see some things in here that ended up making the final game. There's no texturing in here. I don't know if there ever was, but when I loaded this, this is what it looked like. But look at this. There's a figure holding up the top of a building right here. And you guys will recognize that as the basis for the Graphital building. This is an idea that came in really early and totally ended up in the final game. We'd never really
Actually,
played. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, well, one thing about that real quick actually is like
Mhm.
one of the things that we noticed as part of this, like you can climb anywhere and you can run out of
Yeah.
stamina, but other than that, it's kind of like anything goes. So like that specific type of shape is a way to prevent you from climbing, right? It's a structure with a gap and then another structure, which is it's rare. Like you have that and you have shelves, and those are kind of the only ways we can kind of stop you.
Yeah, we did
So yeah.
experiment with making unclimbable glass at one point, where you would kind of grab it and slip, because you can't sink your fingers in the glass. That doesn't make sense, but it ended up just being more intuitive to be able to climb anything. So we let you sink your fingers into glass, and yeah, nobody ever thought that was weird. So
Don't say anything now.
yeah. You can see that when I zoom out in this video, you can see the size of this landmass. This is what we would call a block, right? This is one block, or maybe, about the size of a streaming zone, if you want to get into how open world and levels pretty big and stuff, and all that works. But it's not very big. But it can fit quite a lot of interesting stuff in it. And we'll assemble a whole world out of, stuff about this big, as we can kind of conceptualize it. If you go to the next video, we actually did play on this next map quite a bit. This was our urban test area. So this doesn't have kind of the same heights as the city. It's a little bit shorter, but this map is quite large. It consists of many city blocks put together. It's got a park. It's got kind of a canals area with water in it that we thought was really interesting. There's a lot of gameplay footage from this era, because this was the map we were using when the game really first started coming together. Health existed, stamina existed. There was no battle royale or ring or those types of win conditions yet, but we would come here and pop balloons. We had balloons you could run around and pop. We would come here and just pick a block to do death matches on. Here's the canals area, so you can see there's a cool water area down below that you can be thrown into. You can see some of the balloons floating around as well. And
I think if you just kind of glance at this, you can kind of tell that like the scale of things kind of feels more like what we launched with.
Right.
Like this feels like Graphital City, and I think part of that is the size and the distance between things.
Yeah.
Which is
So
kind
this
of what we were trying to nail down.
Exactly. This represents all of that learning. Like this is our real first stab at finding the right density for the world and trying to figure out how to get different kind of gameplay moods and tones into different areas, like the river area or the park area. So it was really cool to play on. It was, I think this map is, I don't know, 1/16 the size of the Graphital City Island or something. It's actually pretty small, but it's quite a lot of room to play on when you're experimenting and trying to get your platforming and your combat just right.
Question:
go to the next one.
how did
Oh,
we
go ahead.
or how did we land on Graphital City as the name, and then how early or late in the process was that?
I think that came up like right away. I feel like that was always there for some reason.
Yeah. I just remember misspelling it with an O, just like constantly. I
Yes,
always
I
spelled
did
it
too.
Graphital City.
For years.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I recall us having our meetings about what this game would even be. If we're going to do a wrestling battle royale, what would it even be? And the core fantasy of, I want to elbow drop off a skyscraper, or I want to suplex somebody off a skyscraper, kept coming up and seemed to be the thing we wanted to build the whole game around. You can't elbow drop somebody from a skyscraper if there's no skyscraper. So we're in a city, and then we named the city, and I think we named it Graphital City like right away. I don't know who did it, but I'm pretty sure that was there like the whole time.
That's awesome. And then I have a question from chat, maybe as we move on to the next one. We've made a lot of mention of Unreal as our game engine. Is there any particular reason maybe why we landed on that and selected Unreal as our engine?
I'm not the right person for that question. That's probably a Ramon question, maybe.
Oh,
but
yeah. Fair enough.
It's an industry standard tool, and it does a lot of great things for you out of the box. And if you have a great engineering team like we do, you can customize it to do basically anything and do those things very well. So yeah,
cool.
we love Unreal.
Right.
Appreciate
She's powerful and multi-platform, and we have
Yes.
proprietary tools for plugging in. Like, just the logical choice.
Yep.
Yeah.
We got source access. We can do whatever we want.
All right, now someone's flying here. What's going on?
Oh my, yes. This is this is Island 1. This is what we'll call this. This was our first attempt at gray boxing out what Capital City would be like. And this was a map that Ray worked on. He was one of our first level designers. And you can see that, like what you're seeing right now on the screen, that is all metro. That is an entire Capital City sized area of just the city temperature of gameplay, right? It's all skyscrapers. And then you have other areas that are like all suburbs, and it's just miles and miles of suburbs. And then you have other areas that are construction areas or industrial areas, and it's miles and miles of that. And you have an urban area, and it's miles and miles of that, right? They're very separated. And what we learned making this map was that even though those areas were all fun, they started to feel almost maze-like, and you'd get kind of lost in them because they were too repetitive. And they didn't feel like a real place because they didn't flow into each other very naturally. There was a very hard line between where, urban ended and industrial began, and where urban ended and city began, right? So we wanted to make this stuff feel a lot more natural as we iterated. You are going to get to see some gameplay videos, like full gameplay videos on this map, which is pretty cool, though. There are a lot of cool things here. Do you want to talk about this at all, Noah?
Yeah, well, this is kind of when the game started becoming really fun, I think, for me. Like,
Agreed.
enough of the pieces were there, and the map was obviously a lot more together. So I just have a lot of fond memories of playing in like the factory, and the stadium that we just looked at was kind of funny. That was like it was meant to be a courthouse/stadium combination. I know we're not supposed to talk too much about lore, but this isn't really lore because this wasn't really part of the game. So
Yeah.
the idea there was, you would like get into some kind of legal trouble, and maybe you'd go into the courthouse, and it would be a brawl instead of a what are you doing? A law thing.
Yeah, brawl
Just
instead
fight
of
your
law.
way out.
I spotted something earlier. It's kind of interesting. In the beginning, when they were launching, the ring size was actually, or the ring shape was a square. So
Yeah.
it looks like we were messing around with that as an idea.
We did. We had the ability to do squares or circles. We ended up condensing just to circles for launch, just for some communication clarity things. But the square rings totally worked. They're kind of interesting in their own way. So I liked them.
Interesting.
You can see a lot of animations in this video too that are what we call block-in animations. So what happens when we're prototyping a game is animation will try and get the posing right. So they'll be like, hey, what are the basic beats of this move? We'll get the anticipation part of the posing, the attack portion of the posing, the recovery portion, or if it's a traversal thing, we'll just hit a few of those key poses and let the software interpolate between them. So all the animations look kind of rough. Because the software is doing a lot of the in-between frames, and we're just doing the keyframes. But it's a really important process because it allows us to prototype gameplay that looks, legible, which means you can tell what's going on and what's supposed to be happening. And we can do that very fast because we don't have to sit here and polish. And that's also really good because not everything we make actually ships. Not everything we do in this game is something that's going to go out to the customer. You can see this whole map here that we did not ship. There's a bunch of moves you're going to see in a later video that we didn't ship. They just didn't end up making sense for the game for whatever reason. So it's a pretty interesting process. I'm pretty familiar with it from years of doing combat stuff, but getting to do those types of processes on even traversal animations, like what's climbing going to look and feel like, and how do we represent the character's meaty paws ripping into the wall, and what does the ledge up look like? We're actually iterating on the ledge up animation until a couple months before we shipped the game because it just wasn't exactly right. It didn't sell the weight of the character movement just right until that last moment.
I think for my money, I think that process that you're talking about with the interpolation between keyframes and 3D is one of the big reasons why 3D games are kind of cheaper to make than 2D games at this point.
100%.
Which is, for people who like 2D art, it's kind of sad, but that's the reality of it.
Yeah. Definitely makes things pretty easy. Let's go to the next video.
Yeah.
All right, so we actually have some gameplay for you here. You're going to get to see the old center scrolling health and stamina bars in action.
Is this the barge?
Yeah, so this is the
This is
original
a barge.
version of the barge. This is the
Oh,
very
a
first
barge.
pass of the barge. Yeah.
When
So
Sam came on, he wanted to do a new barge. I think
yes,
was around where that started. He did a great
Mm.
job. Although I like this
yes.
barge too.
Yeah, you can see there's still wrestling rings in the game at this point. This was before we kind of made the decision that they betrayed players' expectations of being able to bounce on the ropes and perch on the corners. And until we could satisfy that expectation, we didn't want to put them in the game. I think this gameplay is from Eric from Dantarian.
Yeah.
So he's I don't know where he thinks he's going. He's got to come back to the ring. There you go, buddy.
So I'm seeing some obviously different older UI, but one of the conversations we were having in the UI UX stream was how pods used to function before. So arms,
there's a
legs,
lot
core.
to talk about.
Yeah.
With that. Before we jump into that, this area he landed in was one of my old favorites. This is the canals, and it was kind of like a little Venice area. The water here was death water for a while. This was wildly dangerous place to be. And then the death water was so frustrating for folks at that point in the game that we ended up turning it into bounce water that would damage you and bounce you back out, just like that right there. And we had the game working that way for a while, but then we ran into a lot of problems with the bounce water where players couldn't make it back or get stuck. So we ended up going back to the instant KO water that you all know and love or hate today. But yeah, this canals area was really cool. It was one of the few areas that really stood out in kind of the urban area as a kind of a point of interest or a POI alongside that stadium that you all just saw as well. See, the animations are much rougher, pretty different. But on the topic of pods, you could see there's 3 bars for pods and they go 5 units each. So the way the system originally worked was you could get 5 arms, 5 core, and 5 legs, and it didn't matter how many you had of the other ones. You could just go to 5 in each no matter what. So there was no thinking involved. You just ate whatever pods you found and filled each bar to 5, and then you were good to go. And we didn't like that system because it was brainless, basically. You have anything to add to that, Noah?
No, I mean that kind of says it all. It would just be you would gobble up whatever you could find, and yeah, no commitment like we talked about earlier. No real decision making.
I feel like
We had a lot of systems like that. Like the old perk system was decisionless as well. You would just eat every special move magazine you didn't want and get a perk. And in the old perk system, perks were terrible. They were really weak. So the nimble perk existed back then. It gave you 10% decrease in cost on your dodge. You could barely even notice that. And then they would stack. So you'd eat magazines and you'd have like 80 perks, and maybe you got 5 stacks of nimble, and it was as good as nimble is today. But it was just impossible to even read your perk bar, know what you had or what benefit you were getting. Plus, there were no magazines to find because everyone was eating them,
Right.
which made tuning the loot impossible. So we ended up redoing the perk system to be what you guys know and love today.
I just like
which
the
also-
sentence "eat magazine."
It looks really funny.
Yeah, you would squish
You
the
would
magazine up like a
literally
ball.
eat
And
it.
literally eat it, yeah.
Really?
Yeah,
Hungry
it was
for
great.
I
knowledge.
think the loot system is another like one of those things that's like you only notice it when it's a problem. I think I'm pretty happy with where we landed, but yeah, early on you couldn't find pods, you couldn't find food. I think in the last stream you guys talked about meat sweats and why that came to be.
Mhm.
But I think the last piece there was like there was just nothing that was rare until we added the keybat. And for me, that filled in this last piece where it's like, okay, I've got my build, I've got food, I've got everything I need. Why do I want to keep looting? Well, I don't. But now, as a keybat, maybe I'll find it. Maybe I'll find a locked crate. Kind of keeps that game going basically for the entire match, which was not the case originally.
Yeah. Plus, originally there was no second half of the game. There was no hurt people to get perks. It was loot to get perks. So you would just be in a never-ending cycle of finding boxes and eating pods and magazines and just consuming everything. So nobody else could find anything. And eventually you'd be forced to fight in the final ring. But it was a very much more turtley game. And I think adding the system where you gain perks for combat was very well received and really did help push a lot more people towards aggression in the early and mid game.
Yeah, that was a great mechanic. I think that was all you, Adam. So nicely done.
It's always a team effort, Noah.
That's true. It was your idea, though.
I think
we can go to the
we're-
next video.
Yeah, safe to go to the next one. And then a question, because I think I spotted a blocking animation, which brings me to a question from the chat. Why does holding shield generate more shield, and how did we land on that decision in that animation?
You'd think naturally, like holding your defense would weaken you and it would open you up if you block too much or whatever. But the one game development fact you really need to understand in your soul is that players hate blocking. They hate it. Oh, they hate it so much. They don't want to block. They don't want to press the button. They don't want to be told there's a block. They don't want to block anything. They don't want to do it. They want to press the dodge button. And that's it, because that's cool. They don't think blocking is cool. So how do we make people block? Because it's a very important part of our game, and the game doesn't really work without it because dodge. I think dodge only focused games tend to be a little loose and messy for my tastes. So we were like, how about you replenish your stamina when you block? And suddenly a lot of the stubborn folks on the dev team were much more enthusiastic about pressing the button just for their stamina. And then they were accidentally blocking attacks. And then they were like, oh, wait a minute, block's pretty good, huh? And it kind of got us where we wanted to go in a environment where if you make combat games, if you ever get into game dev and you make combat games, you're going to find out your player base hates blocking. They hate the idea of it. They don't want it to exist. And you need to figure out a way to make it a fun, functional part of the game. So yeah, that's where we ended up. And you deplete people's stamina by attacking them while they're blocking. So it's on you to kind of pressure the shield down.
Yeah, and also, obviously blocking is non-vulnerable. You have grabs. Like I think a lot of this kind of question comes from a place where it's like, why are you doubly rewarding people for doing something that's good?
Right.
And then also they get stamina, but like blocking's it's good, but it's not great. It's it's part of the game. It's just another state that leaves you vulnerable to still vulnerable to stuff, unless you
Exactly.
have incredible reactions like some people. But
Fighting
most of
Adam
us
is
don't.
always terrifying to me because he can bait me into blocking and then suplex me like over and over all day, every day.
Yeah.
That's
People
the
should
other
use
thing your
basic
players
grab
don't
more.
want to do. They don't want to pay attention to what their opponents are doing. They just want to do
Right.
what they want to do. That's an interesting challenge to overcome. You can see a lot of our systems here, even in this state. This was years ago, were like you understand them now. There's no priority system here though, so it was kind of that fastest attack wins thing. It made the weapons were bad for a long time, like really bad. Before priority system, really they were good as throwables, but they having extra range didn't really mean anything in the context of the game because of the tracking systems, and they just got stuffed all the time by faster moves. So they weren't very good, and that was something priority system really helped us solve as well. You can see some spectating that Eric does after he is KO'd in this clip, which is great because you can see a little bit more action. There's the blue pod. That was Leg's old color. We recolored them all because they changed functions. We went with red, yellow, blue because that's a very colorblind friendly group of colors. And we ended up picking the same colors by coincidence that Ring Fit for Nintendo Switch did. They used the exact same colors for their arms, core, and leg stats, which I thought was a pretty funny coincidence. But the stats used to do more for you. So the arms would give you attack power, but also make you climb faster. And the core was actually giving you max health and max stamina, and the legs are making you run faster and jump higher. We wanted to simplify that a little bit, but we also were finding that moving faster was not good for the game. Letting players move faster was making the combat worse in a lot of ways. Letting people jump higher was making the combat harder in a lot of ways that you could probably understand if you've played the game a lot. Like, just wouldn't be great if people were suddenly 50% faster. Make them a lot harder to hit.
Right.
That's predictable, yeah.
Yeah, so we ended up getting rid of the idea of moving faster. The only way to physically move faster in the game today is Superstar mode, and it's only 20% faster. I'm going to talk about what's happening here on screen next loop through, so we'll get to that. So we ended up reducing the stats to what you guys know today, and that meant we wanted to change the colors to match the functions a little bit more. So, the one that gives you health is the same color as your health bar. The one that gives you stamina is the same color as your stamina bar. And red is just a pretty well understood color for something dangerous, so that made sense for damage. Although it is like an off red, it's kind of closer to orange, because when you use red on the screen, that's particular shade of red, it's very attention drawing, and you want to save that for when you need people's attention.
See, another interesting question in the chat from I Am One Hero. Was there ever a different design for the Superstar Special? And I feel like that might open up a cool conversation of like, I guess, how did we land on Superstar Special, and was there anything before that that may be interesting to
Yeah.
talk about?
So we used to have a pinning system for a long
Do we have
time.
time for this story?
Yeah.
There's a lot here.
Let's talk about it. So for a long time, the way that you eliminated somebody was either you deplete their HP, which puts them into a pinnable state. You walk up to the body, you hit interact, and you pin them, and then you wait for the 3 count, which is actually about 6 seconds long. And then if you could do that, they were eliminated. The only other way to eliminate them was to finish them off with a special move when their health was low enough in what we call a danger zone. And every time somebody survived being pinned, the danger zone would get bigger. So they'd be more and more likely to be instant killed by a special move. Supers didn't exist at this time. This was just the mechanic. We tried for kicking out of a pin a minigame. It was bad. There is no version of a minigame that works for everybody, because what you'll find is no matter how hard you make it, there's always somebody who can just do it perfectly every time. And it's just not the type of skill we wanted to test in this game. So we ended up doing like a little pin escape meter, which is where the kind of super meter first started to appear in the game, but it was only for escaping a pin. So if you had it, you could escape a pin. And if you didn't, you had to hope somebody rescued you. And we'd give people a bonus on that meter if they rescued you, to give them some incentive to rescue, if they were, a third party or whatever. That system was neat. It had some problems. I think in a one-on-one, it was pretty clean. But in a group setting, like, it actually made jumping into a group fight much less risky, because the odds of somebody being able to pin you for 6 seconds while there's all that chaos going on are very, very low, actually. So it kind of took the edge off of seeing a big group fight and saying, oh, I'll just jump in and see what happens. And that may sound fun, but then everybody else in the server also does that. And now you have this clumpy is the only word for it. You have this clumpy, 25 person battle in one spot where it's just illegible. Everyone's swinging, and it's just kind of nasty.
And also, keep in mind, this is a battle royale. So as the ring is
Right.
getting smaller, the situation that I'm describing becomes more and more common
Yes.
and more likely. So like, if you thought some of the final rings in season 1 went on a little long, this only made that problem worse.
Yeah. One other thing I liked about pinning was, at least for a team mode, in a duo mode, for instance, the way it is now, the onus is on the team that is outnumbering the other team to kind of protect, right? So what'll happen is, like, me and Keenan will be on a team and we'll knock Noah down. And now we're defending the corpse, right? So it's 2 versus 1. It's me and Keenan against Ellie. And Ellie has to win a 1v2 battle in order to resurrect her friend. So the odds are against her. Whereas with pinning, if we were to have that system, me and Keenan are on a team, we knock Noah down. Now one of us has to leave combat to pin Noah, and now Ellie's in a one-on-one with the other one of us to try and stop that pin from happening, which evens the odds and also resolves the situation faster. So instead of waiting 30 seconds, you end up waiting more like 6 seconds to see if that pin is successful. So I did like that about it, but it ended up having, a lot more problems than it was worth. And it was also a pretty touchy system to get working on, like, the edges of buildings and all the kinds of other weird edge cases in the world where somebody might be laying down and you might want to lay it on top of them to do that pin if they're, like, on a weird corner on the edge of a building, or if their body gets stuck on a bounce pad or something, right? The game just is like, I don't know what to do with that. I guess they get to get up for free. So there's some bad things there. When we decided to cut pinning, we needed to figure out a way to give players a second chance. And that's really where the super meter started from, is that we wanted to have a system, and we had plans for, supers early on in development and stuff that we never ended up building. But at this point in development, we were just like, okay, what if there's that pin meter, that super meter, whatever you want to call it, gives you the ability to auto spend it and get back up after you get knocked out. So you get that kind of KO insurance. That way you still have the ability to jump into a big crowded fight and lower your risk if you want, but it doesn't last forever. And that seemed to be a popular idea with the team. And then, we wanted other ways to utilize that meter. So we investigated, hey, maybe you can buy favors around town with this meter. Can you get a hot dog from the hot dog cart with this meter so you can heal yourself if you can't find healing? That idea ended up being, squash chicken vendors and stuff, which, now you can get for free and they're just on a timer. But at some point we were, toying with the idea of you spending resource to get that. And then we kind of started pitching the super mode and the super move and trying to add that extra variation to the combat that we kind of felt it was missing anyway. That really impactful kind of final moment, that fear that comes over you when somebody pops super, right? So we ended up agreeing to kind of take the pinning out and build that whole super system, which we did. And it just really enhanced the game a ton. It gave us what we wanted for KO insurance, and it also added this whole new element to the game with the super meter as kind of a, whoops, I made a mistake. I'm going to activate my super to kind of get out of the mistake, or I need to escape, so I'll activate the super to run and heal, or I'm chasing somebody and I'm out of stamina, so I'll activate the super to get the stamina back up so I can get in and finish the job. And it gave us that, really awesome spinning powerbomb animation, which was, I believe, the only super we prototyped and sent out. There's always talks of making additional ones in the future or whatever. There were old animations for moves that weren't supers, like there was a tombstone and a muscle buster, stuff like that.
Yeah,
It could have maybe been supers in the future, but got to make sure when we do a system like that, if we were to do a system like that, that it's all fair. Whichever one you pick is kind of like not better than the others or whatever.
right.
I
That brings
rambled
me
there a
to
lot.
that brings me to a question actually from last week. I know that there's showing in previous the UI UX meeting too that a Hurricane Rana was thought about for the game.
Mhm.
What happened to that? And yeah, tell me more about that.
I would say the Hurricane Rana was our most troubled move. It was a move that did a huge front flip forward, and then if it landed on the enemy, it would grab them and flip them backwards. And this was before priority system existed as well. But the way it moved, just it leapt up so fast and went forward so far. It was unblockable. Just absolutely dominating, terrifying move. Constantly put the fear of God in you, and you would be on one side of a fence, and the other dude's on the other side, and then suddenly like, whoop, he just kind of Hurricane Rana's over it and grabs you, and you're like, "What the hell just happened to me?" It was way too strong. So we tried making it blockable, and it would just kind of trigger a grapple animation after it hit. And then it became the worst move in the game instantly. It was just completely unusable because it was so slow and so easy to see coming. And this was also back before defense in the game was like it today. This was when the 200 millisecond rule Ramon talked about in the last stream existed. So you had to block or dodge, a fifth of a second before stuff hit you. So it was much harder to react to things like that back in the day. And I'm not sure how that move would pan out in today's versions of the systems. Maybe we could find a sweet spot for it, but we were not finding a sweet spot for it back then. So we cut it and moved on to things that were working, which is natural for game dev, right? You make lots of things that don't work and you kind of leave them behind.
I think that's a beautiful part of game dev where there's so much experimentation, and then you can see what led up to the final end product.
Yeah.
Right. I think we're almost at the part that we were going to talk about a couple loops ago. So we should talk about this.
You want to talk about this now? What is this gold ring?
Yeah, I can introduce it at least. This is our event system. So has this been revealed anywhere before? This is super cool.
First time.
The idea here was that there would be events, special events during the match. So maybe you would see this column of light, and you could go there and hang out. So this is spectator, so you can't see the UI, but I imagine there'd be a timer counting down, and you can't fight in this ring. So now it's begun. Obviously, the first thing this person does is kick the other person. And now they're running around trying to collect balloons. So this is the balloon run event. It's a little harder for us to see the balloons because, again, this is a spectator mode thing, but they're like kind of dimmed out. But we'll see some in a little bit. But yeah, you want to run around. It's a race to kind of collect as many of these balloons as you can. And then once the time is up, the winner, I think the top 3 people get perk packages, which, as Adam mentioned earlier, perks behaved a little bit differently at this point. It was more like maybe you get
like 5 perks for winning.
Yeah, and so they would stack,
weak.
right? So it would be like 1 rabbit foot would give you like 1% less stamina cost for whatever, and then 5 of them would give you kind of what we know today. So they were much more generous with perks, but that's because they were very weak.
Right.
So this was cool. This worked. I think I would have, I think we would have loved to have brought this back someday.
Yes.
It's a big feature. There's a lot of kind of communication challenges, and that question of like what the rewards actually would have been, we didn't really have an answer once the perk system changed. That's not why we didn't pursue it. I think, we could have solved it, but we never got there. But it was really cool, fun mechanic.
Yeah, this is very much something that I kind of draw inspiration from Kirby Air Ride and the city trial mode.
Yeah.
Actually, I always loved in that you didn't know what you were building for. Like you were building a Kirby ride machine or whatever, and you had no idea what the event was going to be. So after the 5 minutes of building, the game was just like, well, you're doing a long jump. Hope you built for that. And if you didn't, you lose. But during that whole build process, events would happen, and they'd be like, the UFO has come to town, and then there's suddenly a UFO over the city, and it's got power ups on top, and it's like doing other weird stuff. They had all kinds of things happening in the game that I thought were really dynamic and cool. So the event system, I think, is really inspired from there. And what would happen is you'd just be in your match, and it would say, hey, there's a balloon run starting. Go to the gold spotlight if you want to join. And like Noah said, if you're in that spotlight, you're opting into the event. You're not even allowed to attack while you're in that gold spotlight. So you can just emote with the other people there. And as soon as it turns off, all bets are off, and it's whoever can complete the task first or get the most of whatever it was, right? In this case, it was popping balloons. And it was a cool way.
Sometimes you'd be the only one in there.
Yeah.
And you just
sometimes
win. You grab
and
one
pop
balloon, run
and
away.
you win, yeah.
Chow
But it was
How's
a cool-
Two other people, you knock them
commenting
out.
in the chat saying
Yeah.
the balloons ended up being the base tech for
Mm.
the superstar meter
The
stars.
coins, yeah.
I feel like that makes sense because like
Mhm.
when I think of like what mini game do I enjoy within the game, it's just running around
Collecting
collecting
coins.
stars.
Yeah.
Which is cool because it's like you're playing multiple games within one.
Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
And the other thing that was cool about the system is it basically was a call out to players who like a riskier play style to say, hey,
Yeah.
if you like the risky play style, people will be here. Come here and do the thing, and you can get a big advantage if you come out on top. And then the other thing that we found from it was that there were players who absolutely did not want to play in the events, but showed up to every single one of them, and they never opted in. They stood just outside, and then they would just take pot shots at the players competing in the events. Our own CEO, Adam Boyes, would do this frequently. He would just literally follow the people getting balloons, and it was very obvious where you were going because I can see if I don't opt in, all the balloons are semi-transparent to me, but I can still see where they are. If I opt in, they're solid and I can see them clearly. But you knew where people were going. I'd be like, oh, Noah's going that way. He's going for the balloon up there.
Right.
And then I just throwing shit at him, making him really sad. And you would see players who joined events just get eliminated from the game by players who did not join the event. And it added a lot of kind of dynamic risk to those situations as well. It's a
I
cool
think
system.
something that we
Definitely would
were
like to see it again someday.
something we were worried about early on was just, are people going to fight enough? Like, is it going to be too
Right.
easy to run? So yeah, the event, like you said, draws people together, another opportunity to kind of incentivize combat.
Mhm.
And it kind of ended up being a lot less of a problem than I think we worried early on. I remember like when we added the superstar mode, I was like, well, people will just run away. Like, why would I ever fight with someone who's in that mode?
Right.
But it wasn't true, especially because maybe you have a full meter and you knock them out, they're done, but you have another chance. Yeah,
I
it's
feel like
funny
it also just
what
like
kinds
it
of
invites a challenge like superstar meter. So what? I know I can.
yeah,
I can
exactly.
Take you.
I'm supposed to be scared, but I'm not.
Yeah, I'll take you on.
Yeah, runaway was always a bigger problem back when characters got faster as well. As
Mhm.
you sped up, your animation actually changed. You can see this character on the screen; their arms are a little bit behind them. If you got the full 5 legs, you went into the full-on Naruto run, and you had the arms behind you and everything. It was really
Yeah.
funny.
And even with the game we launched, you could build up stamina, and that would, on paper, make you more powerful at running away and harder to
Yes.
catch. But like in practice, it just felt like there's so much nuance to the way you move, and so many opportunities to kind of be tricky and feint people and bait them out, that it kind of always felt like skill kind of ended up being more important than just raw numbers, which was kind of surprising, but really nice.
Yeah, and also the tracking systems make it so that you don't have to be
Yeah.
super precise when you're chasing somebody, especially with thrown items.
Mhm.
And we played this game for almost a year before the inventory system even existed. Like combat was working, platforming was working, but we didn't have the ability to pocket anything. So you didn't, to throw something at somebody who was running away from you meant you had to stop chasing them, pick up the thing, and then aim. Adding pockets really changed that whole equation because now you can, long jump at them, pull it out of your pocket while you're in motion, and then aim and whip it at them much more seamlessly.
Yeah, items and inventory and kind of just like item manipulation moves, or kind of one of my favorite things about this game in general. Like liberate, I'm a big fan of, even though I don't use it as much as maybe I should. I love the locked crate. I love the key bat. Like that interaction was kind of my baby for a little while.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The liberate animation is actually animation for a move we cut. We had a hip check move and we cut it because we were just like, what is the difference between this and punchline? One hits with the fist, the other one hits with the butt. But functionally, like, what are we trying to do here that's different enough to justify this? And we didn't have an answer, so it got cut. But when the idea for Liberate came back up, we needed a move that would convince them to look like it, bumped somebody off balance. We dug through the old animations and we were like, oh, this could work, and it's kind of funny. So it was cool to be able to resurrect an old animation with a new purpose.
Yeah, clever repurposing of existing asset. Well, cool. Any last comments on these videos before we move on?
Do we have any more videos? Is that the end of them?
That's the last one.
Oh, so sad.
Yeah. It was really fun to look at all this old stuff.
Yes.
I wish we had recorded more.
Same.
Next game, I'm going to record more video.
I'm just going to buy a second hard drive and fill it with old videos.
Right, that's the real one. We all need triple the storage.
Yes. That's why I delete my old
Everything.
stuff. I got no room.
Right. Well, cool. Before we move on to some gameplay, hopefully you all have some time still. I wanted to ask if any of you had shout-outs you'd like to make to the team, or to the internet, or community, whatever you're feeling.
I don't want to shout out anyone individually because I don't want to forget anybody. But really proud of the team, everybody on it. We built something truly unique here that I'm sad we won't be able to access soon, but I'm very proud that we were able to do something that feels like nothing else you've ever played. It kind of feels like things you've played, but the configuration of those things feels totally unique. And ultimate sadness because I don't know what I'm supposed to play to fill this void now, but because there's really nothing like it. But also, how many times in my career am I going to get to work on something that is this unique and this rule breaking and this box bending? I don't know. Maybe I won't get to again. I have no idea what the future holds for me. But I want to express my deepest gratitude to everyone on the team who made this possible, and everyone on the team who believed in it. And of course, all the players who found a new favorite game when they gave this thing a chance. So, we're all brothers and sisters in this together forever. Even though it's gone, the memory of it will be with us always.
It's all part of the Rumble.
All
Yeah,
part
I'll
of
call
the
out
Rumble.
a couple. I'll call out a couple people in particular, just because we've been showing so much level stuff off. Like we said, Alex Morton and Dave Turkowitz were the newest kind of members of the level design team, and they were around for a lot of the end of season 2. But a lot of the stuff they worked on, where a lot of you didn't get to see. So it was really cool, and they had a lot of awesome stuff to contribute, and it was great to work with them for. I'm sure we'll work with them more in the future, but it was great to work with them for as long as I did. The only other thing I guess I would say is that we worked in this game for a long time, right? It was like 4 years ish.
Yeah,
And you guys only got to play it for what, 6 months?
6 months.
And that's pretty crappy. It sucks it sucks for you to not get to play for the game for as long as we did, because I was still having fun. But it also sucks for us to spend so much time making something that kind of gets to live in the world for so much less time than we spent working on it. Like, it doesn't feel right. But we had a great time working on it. Nice thing about making a game that you still want to play when it's done is that the process of making it was probably really fun also. So as sad as it is, I just want to say that I really enjoyed making it, and it was really fun to work on it with all the people that I got to work on it with. So there's that.
Beautiful.
I've got a couple shout outs. I started on Rumbleverse doing camera stuff, and one of our engineers, Chow Hao, had so much patience for me learning how to make a camera. And then I moved on to bots and got paired with Nate Herbst, another engineer who I think might be the strongest person to ever exist, because he gave, like, the bots couldn't climb, the bots couldn't punch, the bots couldn't do anything. Like, I'm a Swiss Army knife, but I'm a Swiss Army knife without C++ privileges. So Nate really did a lot of the heavy lifting. And like, our whole QA team, just like more than any other person probably, like we've had years to fall in love with this game, and y'all have had months to fall in love with this game. QA has put more hours into this game than I can probably fathom, and they don't complain about it. They seem pretty hyped to do it, and I think they're all really great.
Seconded.
Thirded. Well, cool. Thanks very much for those shout outs. I'm looking at the chat for potential questions before we move on to our gameplay section.
Yeah, I'm
Noah,
going to do some questions.
if you'd like to start, I guess, prepping yourself for hopping in. I don't know if you're switching to a different computer.
Yeah, my body's
hopping
ready,
into
but my
our
computer's
lobby.
not. I'll be right back.
Yeah, go for it. Actually, wait, before you go, I have a quick lore question because I think you worked very close with it. Where is Skip's cat?
He's gone.
You'll never know.
He's with Noah in the darkness.
Yeah, sorry, I can't talk about lore. That's top secret.
Oh, okay. Well, there wasn't any specific. There wasn't a specific spot. Maybe we heard cat noises in a certain part of the world?
Michael Metz, our audio designer, hooked those up. So I don't know. Yeah, we should have talked
I
to him about
remember.
Skip's cat, I guess.
I was gonna toss it to you if you knew, but there have been some
I
points.
know where Skip's sunglasses are.
Those have
They're on the
definitely
beach.
been caught by the community. But a potential location of where Skip's cat could be, if you're walking around, maybe checking out some sewer chicken or sewer squats, you may hear a meow or two in that area. But who knows? Skip's cat may be moving around. Still trying to find him. Let's see. Any story behind the Irish whip?
Yeah, the basic combat went through a lot of iterations to try and find a sweet spot where it was effective and versatile, but not so powerful that you didn't need special moves. And one thing we found kind of early was I forget even what we had for the original dash grab. Noah, do you remember what it was? Are you there?
I am here, but I don't remember either. Was it just
I think it was just
suplex,
I remember what it was. It was like a German suplex. Okay. So the basic grab was like a vertical suplex style one, right? Where you take the guy, you lift him up, and you go back. Whereas the dash grab one would kind of grab the person, swing around behind them, and then dunk them backwards. And that was pretty cool. But you really just didn't have a way to interact with the environment as directly as I think players wanted. So we tried the Irish whip, which was very problematic because we needed a move that you could be aimed, and the animation for it had to do that seamlessly. It was very challenging, I think, for Isaac and the animation team, Tammy and them, to get that working right. But even though it was ugly for a long time, functionally, it got us what we wanted. It was this ability to dash and then grab, which was a little bit more easy to read and see coming. So you could take that risk. But if you were able to get it, you could aim where they went. So if you wanted to interact with a wall instead of a wall splat, you could do that. If you wanted to toss them off a ledge, you could do that. So you had this really low damage option that could lead to more explosive things. And that really, at the time, completed the basic moveset. That really made it start to make sense. And of course, later we ended up revising the basic combos like we've talked about before, to give you more options there. But I think that was the missing piece for the longest time in early dev was getting that Irish whip in the game.
Cool. Then one more question before we move on to gameplay. What combos are we all surprised by that the community found?
I've seen some stuff I think Orlando's did with the rocket jump.
I was practicing it last night. I was in playground mode for like an hour trying to do it, and I was like,
that works.
You did it in live too? I'm like, it was crazy.
So one thing I would like to see somebody in the community recreate is something we did in development. It's called the Cosmo Tower. All right. So what you need to do is you need to go into playground mode, preferably with a private server. So it's just you and the pals. And you need to go to a structure that has lots of different heights to it, like a parking garage or something like that. And the idea is to Cosmo shot somebody at the bottom and then dodge cancel it. So they go up in the ball, but you don't follow them. And then the next person jumps off and Cosmo shots them and dodge cancels it. So they go up again. And then the next person jumps off and Cosmo shots them. So they go up again. And you try to get them as high as you can until that final person lands the final Cosmo shot and knocks them down from the heavens. Right. So if somebody could recreate the Cosmo Tower and shoot it before servers close down, I would appreciate that.
Do you remember how many people we got to?
I think we went up 4 or 5 stories. I think it was 4. So we got 4 Cosmo shots before the final one.
We did it in a parking garage. I remember that.
Yeah, parking garage on the south side, I think, is where we did it. But there's probably better spots to do it. We just didn't really explore for it.
You all are invited to show us.
Do the Cosmo Tower.
The one that comes to mind for me was the season 1 doing the air dodge cancel out of Cosmo into multiple, but then also the Cosmo hug. When people found that, I was like, hold on, that's been in the game. What? Why?
The game let you cancel into basic vicious like the frame after it hit, and I'm like, no, that's not right.
Yeah,
that's not supposed to be that way.
That in the game was a pretty cool community discovery for me.
Yeah.
How about?
I see a lore question I can answer,
Go
which
for it.
is where is Skip broadcasting from?
Go
And
for it.
the answer is the ABS tower.
What's ABS stand for?
It's the action broadcasting system.
That's right.
There you go.
Their tower is the big payback district, that giant one with the bell on top. He's in there somewhere.
Somebody asked, was there going to be a dynamic time of day system? And the way the lighting is handled in the game, that wouldn't be possible. Those types of systems can be built, but the way we handled lighting in this game, that wouldn't work. We had tossed around the idea of doing different time of day variants on the map, but those would take significant amounts of time from the art team to get ready, and you'd only have 2 or 3 different times a day to experience. It'd still be a cool thing to do, but it just wasn't in the cards.
There were earlier reports of snow and rain, but it turned out to be sunny all day and all night.
Day, every day.
How about you, Ellie? Any mentionable combos, or things maybe you learned from the community while playing?
That horrible juggling act where 2 of you will throw items alternately at someone and keep them stun locked forever.
Yeah.
I've made it through what, like 4 months of playing this game in live, and everyone's been really cheerful. We're all just using whatever exploit Adam hasn't fixed yet over and over. And then one day it's just like I can't get in a single game without 2 people just alternating chicken hits on me for 4 minutes straight until I die. I'm like, this is the rudest thing I've ever experienced.
You'll run out of chicken eventually.
No, because they just pick it up.
Yeah, with a third player, they can pick it up.
It was so rude.
I remember, I think the week or 2 before launch, we discovered the nut punch combo in duos.
Yep.
And I think we're like, well, we got to launch. So people probably aren't going to discover this. And they discovered it instantly.
Yeah. Steph LOL found everything.
I think that one was hot.
First day.
Yeah. I think that one was hot fixable. But
yeah,
we can't take that stuff for granted.
Sure
People are
can't.
too good. And then this is a non-community one, but I like that Eric Dantarian, one of the engineers, made it his mission to try to kill people from cannon launch, basically. So depending on where you land, he would land on you, Irish whip into a wall, etc., knock you off a grapple building, and he would have, one hit touch of death combos from cannon launch that were pretty fun to get hit by.
Yeah.
He's very good at stair-stepping you down roofs, just throwing you off, elbow dropping, throwing you off, elbow dropping until you're done. So upsetting.
Well, cool. I think that'll conclude our presentation section. Thank you so much, design folks, and everyone else, obviously, that's on the design team. While we may have a select few with us today, there's so many people contributing.